This video features the use of dangerous tools, hazardous chemicals and sharp knives. Viewer discretion is advised.
Oh, it is peaceful by the sea. Oh! Diesel! What are you doing here?
Your worthy fat Sir Topham Hatt has decided that you need my help again. I'm not surprised.
What will the Fat Controller think? He won't like it.
So who's gonna tell him, I wonder? Two little goody-goody telltales like you, I suppose.
Well, I'm not a telltale. No, neither am I.
Those two will soon be gone when I tell the Fat Controller what a mess they are making. Uh-oh.
Things worked much better here before you arrived.
It wasn't me. It was them.
I shall send you home, and I won't be inviting you back.
This video was an adaptation of the Diesel Does It Again story from Series 3 of the television series. It's quite a lot shorter than the episode it is based on. For this Dockside set, it didn't feel necessary to use real water, so I've simply used cellophane on a blue card. I think that from the camera's perspective, it works quite well. I of course did use real water on this set, as we needed those splashes when the trucks hit the water. In the episode, Diesel pushes the trucks off a pier that goes out into the sea. I've decided to take some creative liberties here with this dockside instead. It was a little easier to create and meant I could have some big splashes from the trucks as they hit the water. I needed something for the water to sit in, so I found this large plastic tub. I attached 2 wooden beams from the table to securely hold the tub in place, and then I found a small offcut of plasterboard which was just screwed into the side of the table. To cover the screw holes and add a bit of detail to the dockside, I added these 2 strips of balsa wood. I then painted the entire piece grey and let that dry. To give it some more texture and detail, I made up various shades of grey, with some with orange, some with green mixed in, and after mixing them with water, I used a sponge to dab it onto the board. I wanted this to feel a bit weathered, a bit used. There wasn't really much rhyme or reason to this, I just kept dabbing until I was happy with it. I then made the yard that would lead to the quayside and got working on adding the water. Now the set was ready for filming. Diesel nearly fell into the water. Thank goodness the random hand was able to save him. And that's that. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll hopefully see you next week. Percy has two models released in 00 scale, Hornby and Bachmann. The Hornby Percy was actually the first model locomotive I ever owned, a gift for my birthday or Christmas many years ago. I still have him to this day, and was using him in videos not that long ago. He doesn't run like he used to, probably tired out from all those races back in the day. A few years ago, I acquired the Bachmann Percy. He's always been a bit temperamental, but when he does run, he runs very smoothly. Recently, I decided it was time to update my models with 3D printed shells. The Percy shell was designed by Noah, the LBSC Thomas, and the faces were created by Andrew, the chairlord. The 3D printing went through the usual process. Primed, sanded, filled, primed, sanded, filled. You know the drill. For Oliver and Duck, I used Humbrol Lime Green, which is quite a light shade. Since I opted for a darker shade on Thomas, I decided to go with the darker green for Percy as well. I used Plasticoat Garden Green. The wheels were masked and painted, as was the shell. The running board was primed and painted red. Percy was starting to take shape. Next, I worked on the chassis. I needed to modify it quite heavily to fit the 3D printed shell. The original Bachmann Percy chassis is quite chunky and needed to be cut down. The pickups also needed to be moved from the running board to the chassis block. I'd actually made similar modifications when working on my not so amazing lady model years ago, so I was ready to give it another shot. It looks a bit messy, but I wanted to retain as much of the original plastic as possible to keep the chassis block secure. I painted the bunker black and the dome gold. For the lining and the number 6 on its side, I used vinyl. The smoke box was split in half to make way for the smoke unit, then glued back together and painted black. I added buffers by James Tranos, screw links by Hornby, and lamp irons, which are pins, to the running board. After rewiring Percy with his DCC decoder, I ran a quick test in my messy work area and was pleased to see that he was working great. I decided to use the original Bachmann Percy cab roof to help conceal the internal wiring. Finally, the buffers were painted and I lightly weathered him with black Humbrol weathering powder. He was ready for filming. You're all here to see this finished model of Duck. But first, I'm going to take you on some TTM history. Back in 2012, Bachmann announced they would be making Duck, the Great Western Engine. Looking back at this year, what an interesting time for Thomas. Blue Mountain Mystery, the announcement of a new head writer, Andrew Brenner, Mattel. A whole wave of change was coming. I wonder if Bachmann knew that Duck was returning the following year. Possibly. But to be fair, they made Donald and Douglas during the Miller CG era, long before their return in the Brenner era. So it may have just been a coincidence. I got Duck in 2014, back in my paper-face days. What a fantastic model. Bachmann knocked it out of the park with Duck. Funnily enough, Duck was the first model I ever installed a smoke unit to, back in November 2014. This, however, was without DCC. As you can see in this video, without the dedicated power DCC can provide for the smoke unit, it could not produce very much smoke at all, even when at full speed. If he was running any slower, you'd get no smoke at all. Because of this, I decided to go to DCC the very next month. At this time, I also dremeled the cab and windows using a Dremel tool. I didn't repaint them at this time, so it was just the raw plastic showing through on the edges. But opening the cab definitely makes a big difference. I also removed his chunky backman hook and replaced it with custom screw links too. I never made any more major changes to him again until 2020. Lockdown gave me a lot of time to work on my models and create videos, and I went pretty crazy with it. I really wanted to spruce up my models this time and give them a whole new look. I sanded down his old plastic molded handrails and drilled tiny holes for all new handrails. I did all of my engines at this time, and Duck was by far the most annoying. He has so many holes needed for handrails. Duck was given a new green, and I was a bit lazy, so I just painted around his GWR. He featured quite heavily in the Sodor celebration with his new paint. Now, we fast forward again to 2022. As mentioned in my last modelling video, I had decided to embark on the challenge of 3D printing a brand new Oliver. Because I was working on one of the Little Western engines, I had to work on the other. I quite like the backman model for Duck, so I didn't feel the need to 3D print a new shell. This just meant sanding down the backman and repainting. I was happy with this outcome. The backman models are much stronger and sturdier than their 3D resin printed counterparts. I removed all of the old handrails, safely stored them away, and the old funnel, which by this point was just a straw. I also sanded down the old moulded whistle. Once he was completely sanded, he was then primed. How lovely. When picking a spray paint, make sure that you know it will work for what you intend to use it for by A. Reading the advice on the site or in store, B. Testing on a small, similar material first. This spray paint had a horrible finish, which could have easily been avoided if I tested it first. Alas, he was sanded and primed again. Shout out again to my friend Parva Productions, who helped me find this amazing green, Humbrol Lime Green. This green has such a nice finish and really looks the part. I also 3D printed some wonderful faces designed by Andrew at the Chairlord on Twitter. These were sanded and painted with the same primer I used for Duck. They were then painted by the amazingly talented Mike, Thomas Fan 8. I sadly don't have any pictures of this part, but painting the rest of Duck was quite a task. The bonus of Oliver was that his running board and body were two separate pieces, so it was very easy to paint the running board and body, because they were separate. Duck is the backman shell, and it is all one piece. Masking and painting all of these bits underneath his tanks was a nightmare. I had to hand paint some of it and rely on weathering to fix my imperfections. His buffer beams were painted Senegal red, which is supposedly the red used in Series 3 to 5. I replaced his old screw link with a new Hornby screw link, which looks far superior. I reattached his handrails and 3D printed a lovely new whistle by @JamosTrainers. I knew I'd be changing his funnel properly later, but for now, I put his old straw one on just to give a sense of how it was looking. The decals were so much fun to figure out, not. When I tried printing them myself, I just couldn't get them to work properly. You can see in this image that when up close, you can really tell these have been cut out. These are so small and so difficult to cut. The Cricut was unfortunately hopeless at cutting them out accurately, as I could not get it to calibrate properly. And it seems there are many other Cricut users who suffer from the same problem. The 8 seemed fine, to be fair, as it was just a square cut, but the GWR lettering needed a replacement. That said, he really didn't look too bad at this point, and was really starting to take shape. I tried the custom printed decals from an alternative vendor, but I made the mistake of A, not cutting them fine enough. There was quite a clear outline around them after layers of clear coat. Plus, they had a horrible grain to them. Another round of searching was required. Thankfully, these are very common water transfer decals, so I ordered a new pack. While I waited, I decided it was time for his new funnel. I removed his old funnel and 3D printed a brand new one by @JMosTrainos. I had to alter the size so it would fit the smoke unit, and sanded the inside a little more. This was then primed and painted black. Eventually, the new decals arrived. Although they differ slightly from the show because they have the black shadow, I like it, so I'm keeping it. The new decals really looked the part. He was almost finished. His lamp was completed in a very similar process to Oliver. His lamp was painted black, then white, and then using micro crystal clear for the front, and once dry, I painted it with a frosted finish spray. I also 3D printed a tail lamp and drilled a hole in the back of Duck for the light to poke through. And with that, Duck was finished. However, before I show you him running, I wanted to quickly give you some top tips when filming. Always have buffers or some sort of stop at the end of your tracks. Sometimes you will be so focused on one engine that you forget about the other. Never hang lights precariously to get some extra cool lighting. And as an additional bonus, never leave Duck directly below that light. Engines falling off the set is not a common occurrence. How I managed to do this with Duck twice in 1 week is beyond me. I am so incredibly lucky that Duck is not a resin print. He would have shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. I truly have now learnt my lesson, and I'm being so much more careful with Duck, and all of the engines for that matter. I think the fact he wasn't resin meant I was being a little more careless with him, and poor Duck paid the price. Thankfully, the only damage he suffered was some minor scuffs to his running board. These were filled and painted by hand, and he was ready for filming once more. Thank you very much for watching. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comment section below, and let me know what videos you'd like to see next. Until next time.